Where the fuck are you, George? We know you did this, you motherfucking rat. I even got a voicemail from my ex-girlfriend Christy, who warned, they'll get you for this, George. You're gonna die. At that point, I stopped reading and listening. Then came a number on caller ID that I recognized. It was Jenna, ringing from the minivan. I need to talk to you, she said the moment I picked up. I promise, I'll tell you everything when we get to where we're going. Where's that? Sierra keeps asking. I don't know, Jenna. Let's just get where we're going and we'll talk then. From the I-10, we turned onto the I-5 and went into the San Fernando Valley, where we pulled into a Walmart so Jenna could buy herself some clothes and ditch the pajamas. Then our escort led us west again to a Simi Valley motel that the ATF had booked. There, we waited for Charles to show up with the room keys. If I thought the night of the takedown was hell for me, it had been nothing compared to what my fellow CI had been through in the high desert. As I'd been fidgeting at church in JB's garage, Charles had been on his way over to Tramp's place, having been summoned to an urgent meeting by his lordship. Charles hadn't had a clue what the meeting was about, but the takedown was just hours away. He'd feared the worst. When he arrived in Hesperia, there were several Vagos chapter officers waiting outside Tramp's house. As it turned out, they weren't there for an ambush. Apparently, one of the Victorville patches was splitting from Cycle to form a chapter of his own called Death Valley, and he wanted to take Quick Draw, aka Charles, with him. In order to do that, Charles was required to pay Tramp a change of chapter fee. Gotta hand it to Tramp, man. That old rascal sure know how to keep food on the table and a slot machine fed. Anyway, Charles had to pay the fee and gotten out of there alive in 15 minutes, about 10 times longer than it was taking him to bring me the fucking motel room key. I wanted that dude to hurry his ass up because Jenna was peppering me with questions in the parking lot. Questions she had every right to ask, but I preferred answering in private. When she realized she wasn't getting anywhere with me, she took her frustrations out on old Joe, who was in my truck minding his own business. She flung open the door and demanded, "Did you know?" "Know what?" Joe said coyly. "Cut the shit, Joey Cakes. You know what I'm talking about." Joe nodded and said contritely, "Yeah, I knew. Wrong answer. You fucking knew all this time and you didn't tell me? How could you sit there in my house and let me think George hooked up with someone else and I'm driving around at night looking for him? And what the fuck, Joe? All those times I asked what was going on and you never said a thing." "I couldn't tell you, Jenna," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, but I just couldn't." Jenna vented on the phone to her father next. She wanted to go home to Daddy, but he wouldn't allow it. Going to Nana's place was out of the question too. Bill told his daughter she was safest in my company, and the man was right too, because for months after the takedown, Bill and his wife would hear the rumble of Harley Davidsons cruising past their home. Not long after Jenna hung up with her dad, Charles pulled into the parking lot with the room keys. "Who was he?" Jenna wanted to know. "The other guy," I told her as I moved toward the car. "Hey bro, that was some crazy shit, man," I greeted Charles as he stepped from the car. We hugged and shook hands and swapped stories until Jenna complained she had to pee. So we retired to our rooms, Charles a few doors down and old Joe in the same room with us. There were no complaints from Jenna this time. I think at that point, the girl was beyond caring. I asked Joe to take Sierra for a walk while Jenna and I talked. No sooner had I pressed the door shut than my fiance asked the $1,000,000 question. "Okay, why?" I sat here on the bed and related my story, from David's disappearance to the meeting in Buchanan with John Carr. "Uncle John," she asked. "Uncle John? He's a fucking cop," she said it matter-of-factly, finally able to make sense of it all. "I thought maybe you were gay." I wish that was it. At least I could deal with that. She met my eyes with sudden intensity. "You lied to me, George. The person I thought I was in love with was a lie. And it was just a big lie. I was a lie. I was a life lie. If I told you the truth, what would you have done?" Jenna didn't respond. She didn't have to. We both knew the answer to that. I stood from the bed and walked into the bathroom with my shaving kit. I went to high school with some of those people, she said behind me. Some of them were good people. They didn't do anything wrong. If they didn't do anything wrong, they wouldn't have been arrested. And what about you, she said. What about me? You think you're some kind of angel? What gives you the fucking right? You're lucky no one ever went undercover on your ass. I stripped down and said nothing. And how come I'm not locked up, huh? Jenna continued. I've sold pills, I've sold weed, I've transported across the border. I should have been busted too, shouldn't I? Fuck, George. You should hear the messages the girls left me. She was quiet a long moment, then said listlessly, I can't hang out with my friends anymore. They weren't friends, they were pill users, I told her. They used to talk shit about you all the time. I ran the shower. They were friends, George. They were friends, and they'll get married and have kids, and I'll never see them or have my kids play with theirs. She paused a moment. Things will never be the same. Things will never be even close to the same. She laid on her side and curled up against her pregnant belly. We didn't speak again that day. I took a shower, then shaved off my beard and mustache, rediscovering my chin for the first time in 14 years. I didn't recognize the man in the mirror, and that was the whole idea. I was preparing to say goodbye to George Rowe. Of course, I still had the 22 behind one ear and Green Nation splashed across the back of my head, but I'd deal with those tattoos later. Jenna didn't bother opening her eyes when I collapsed in bed facing her. Either she couldn't bear to look at me, or the girl was exhausted as I was. Pure adrenaline had kept me going for the past 37 hours. Now all of a sudden I had nowhere to go and not a damn thing to do. No trees to trim, no club runs to go on, no church meetings to attend, no guns to buy. I felt like I just finished a month-long meth jag, and now it was time to crash. I rubbed Jenna's swollen belly until I drifted off into a deep sleep. You could have run a locomotive through that motel room, and I would have snored right through it. Finally, it was over. Operation 22 Green was history. That's the end of this book.